Hello everyone, this is Overmind and welcome back to another StarCraft 2 replay cast. Today we're going to be taking a look at a ZvP from the Gold League. So let's go ahead and introduce our players. Spawning down on the bottom right side of Nimbus Ladder Edition, in blue, we have our Zerg player representing Clan 4T7. It is HateCraft. And spawning up the top right side of our map in red, we have our Protoss player representing Clan Fudgek. It is DappazER, which apparently is a player who's so dapper that he needs to go to the emergency room. Now, those of you who are very observant will note that there are no buildings in this base except for our trusty old Nexus. So you have to assume that there's a proxy going on, and indeed this Overlord's going to scout it pretty quickly here. Looks like we do have an expansion from HateCraft right near the proxy. This is actually a proxy gateway, I believe. Yes, indeed. And likely we'll see another gateway being added onto it, since that is what it is good to proxy. There it is. This Overlord flying right over here. This drone deciding that he really doesn't want to be a hatchery right near this proxy, and HateCraft investing in a spawning pool, since he will in fact need units. That drone heading back to the safety, or hopefully safety, of that base. But here we have the first gateway finishing on up. And just so you guys know, if there are Protoss players out there, this is not a great place to hide a proxy. This is actually very much within the line where you would expect an Overlord to be flying. So this is a lot like the hiding that a 2-year-old would do. It's like, no, we don't notice that the curtain is lumpy and giggling. It's fine, don't even worry about it. Ha ha ha, you're so good at hiding. No, this is a bad place to hide, so this is spotted pretty quickly, which is good for HateCraft. But it is a double set of gateways producing chrono-boosted zealots right near his base, which is not so great for HateCraft. So we'll see how he decides to respond to this. Looks like there are going to be some spine crawlers building in the base. However, we do have zealots that have finished and are moving on in for the kill. That scouting drone actually needs to retreat quite quickly if he wants to live. Those spine crawlers about halfway done. Looks like we're going to elect to attack the one on the right first. We do have zerglings on the way. We do have a queen on the way, which should help with this, although queens are quite fragile, and in fact will be necessary for those larva injects. We have a few zerglings being very careful. We have a spine crawler that has finished up. That first drone did wind up canceling being a spine crawler, and then went ahead and built himself back into a spine crawler again to make sure that he stayed alive. This queen needs to be so careful. Here we see a lot of micro going on. We see the queen moving on back. Zealots look like they're going to go ahead and kill off that building spine crawler. Queen probably wants to get in on this, and indeed does. We have additional zerglings popping on out. A cancel and a rebuild on the spine crawler again. That drone is a drone with a will to live. Here we have the queen moving on around again. And I believe the queen lives is what I was going to say. She does appear to be alive, however, additional zealots are moving in. She's trapped. The queen is down, and that is a big problem. It looks like we are going to produce 12 additional zerglings. Drones are helping with the fight, although they are sort of preventing the zerglings from getting as much space and surface area around those zealots as they could. There are still zealots lurking out here. There are still zerglings out here. I actually wonder if HateCraft just moved out and tried to kill this if he could. I think he might be able to. Let's look at the army supply. Looks like we're still in favor of Dappa. However, HateCraft does have a large number of units, and that is quite intimidating to our Protoss player. He also has this queen up here who can help out in this fight. And he, of course, at the moment is building his drones back up. He's waddling his queen slowly back and forth, deciding if he wants to do injects or if he wants to poke out here and see what's up. At the moment, the queen is going to inject, and the zerglings are going to retreat because there are additional zealots down at the bottom of that ramp. Zealots coming on up. There are 3 of them, however. Zerglings can get the surround if the zealots are not careful. Additional zealots down here. Don't know why they didn't head up with their friends, the other zealots. Looks like they're going to all hang out together now. Those first 3 zealots are the popular zealots. They've decided that they don't really want to hang out with the other 4, but they will if it means that they're going to be fighting zerglings. That queen getting a few free shots off. The zealots look like they're heading on up here to check and see if there's a base, which there is not. Evo chamber just about finished up. Looks like the zealots try and attack that. However, when zerglings do move down to attack them, they need to turn around and in fact do. Oh, the queens have to be so careful here. The queen is trapped between the zerglings and the zealots and lives just barely. Second queen actually taking a decent amount of damage running around here. And now queen's bringing the hurt a little bit. I don't know if it's going to survive. The second queen lives. This is actually incredibly good for HateCraft. We have the last zealot killed off. There's one lone zealot out here. Looks like he's going to run slowly all the way back home because he is very frightened of his zerg opponent. Two zealots up here. In the meantime, DappazER has not been idle. Looks like he's got a forge up and going. He's going to get his upgrades up because, of course, upgrades make zealots way better versus zerglings in the early game. So that is, of course, very good to have. He's finally starting that chrono boosted warp gate research right here at his cybernetics core, which, if HateCraft doesn't kill off that proxy, will allow him to warp in down at that same area. And he's continuing to build zealots and stalkers, so looks like he wants to continue this pressure. This overlord should be able to see all of the units moving out of the main base. That overlord needs to be quite careful because I believe that Dappaz can hit that with stalkers. Ooh, very scary, very scary. However, that overlord is still spotting things for us quite nicely. Over here looks like we have our spine crawlers choosing to move forward to make sure that he can hold the line. We have upgrades coming from our Evo chamber. We have metabolic boost for our zerglings, which means we will have speedlings, which makes them much, much, much more scary. Small army assembles here. Additional units being created from these gateways. Soon to be warp gates, hopefully. And we have an expansion, not just from HateCraft, but also from Dappa. And these units, when they get up to the rocks, they're actually within range of the spine crawlers, so that is not great for them. I'm actually going to speed this along just a bit, because I feel like we're going to be sort of at a standoff here for a little while. We have a few units moving out, a few units moving back up, killing off the creep, but taking a few pot shots from those nice spine crawlers. This spine crawler here actually has 3 kills to his name already, which of course makes him the hero spine crawler of this game, doing quite good. I hope that's a spine crawler from before that just kept canceling and remaking himself, making sure that he survived, because that is the one that I want to see live throughout the course of this game. And now we have warp gates and a pylon where our original proxy was. And here we have several sentries, which of course are quite powerful in a game where everything is a ground unit at this point, aside from, of course, our mothership core. We do have roaches from our zerg player. We see that he has a roach quarren and double evo chambers for the double upgrades. And right now, not too many units at this base here just yet. He's still working on filling those out. This base is sort of up in mining for Dappa, although not incredibly productive at the moment since there's only a few probes mining. I think we're going to have lots and lots of juking back and forth and moving about, so I am going to speed it up now, finally and at long last. We'll see what winds up happening. Looks like the Protoss player just doing his best to try and kill off these creep tumors. And Guardian Shield has been activated. Zerglings are in play. Slow has been activated from the Mothership Core. Mothership Core falls, which is of course a big deal if you're a Protoss player. Lots of sentries are dying, and sentries are 100 gas apiece, so this is a very expensive attack for Dappa. In the Units Lost tab, we see that, in fact, our Protoss player is leading. We definitely don't want to be ahead in resources lost. However, this pylon continues to be incredibly good for warping things in, and we have this observer, which will allow us to shoot up onto the high ground if we so choose. Now, HateCraft here is in sort of a difficult position because now this base is up and mining a bit, and as Zerg, you usually want to be up a base on either Protoss or Terran. So right now, he should be up a base in normal game. Since those are the zerg production facilities, it is important that he has that base. However, he is continuing to get his tech. We see that there is a lair being produced. We see that additional drones are being produced. Looks like over here we're just going to kill off some of our creep. And then head back out of the way. This spine crawler still hanging in there, still 3 kills. Looks like we do have a robotics facility, and our immortal is slowly waddling his way across the map. This one overlord, being a champion and spotting all of this tech, all of this stuff that's coming out of this base. Looks like we have some pylons being added out over here, since we do have both Dappa and HateCraft getting a little bit supply blocked at the 76 food mark. That's actually fine. Since both players are doing the same thing, it winds up being about the same for both players. Ah! Here we have a whole ton of sentries warping in. So again, force fields on this ramp, if he can pick off half the Zerg army, will be incredibly useful and very powerful. HateCraft at this moment, still on the Roach tech, possibly wants to consider getting Hydralisk for the range, and indeed, did I just see? Ah, Hydralisk Den, excellent. So we are going to see a bit of tech. Of course, he can't tech as quickly as he could if he were on 3 bases and had all of those resources. Both players' resources very low. Dappa going to go ahead and take a third, which is actually not a good sign if you're a Zerg player and you see that your opponent is up a base and not another Zerg player. It is a problem. It is something that he's going to go ahead and have to solve. I am going to go ahead and speed this up again because there is a lot of sort of standoffy moments here. There's a lot of just sort of waiting around. Looks like the Protoss player moving about. And looks like he's going to go ahead and kill off those rocks. HateCraft taking this opportunity to get a few shots off. We do have upgrades coming up for Dappa. And it looks like he's going to go ahead and get some air. He is building a Void Ray at the moment, so he's diversifying his portfolio. He's making sure that he has enough of different types of units to make this count. We do have Burrow coming up for HateCraft, which won't necessarily be useful for things like not being seen, because there is an observer in that army, but will allow him to burrow individual units and heal them, which will be quite good. He's producing Hydralisk, and he is getting his Infestation Pit, which will allow him to continue to tech if he so chooses. And here, I'm just waiting for the big fight, you guys. I know there's going to be a big fight. I know it's going to happen. Units are amassing every second. Looks like that Hero Overlord just getting killed off by that Void Ray. However, he has done an excellent job at showing us what is coming out of that base and making sure that we are aware. And now we know that there are Void Rays on the map, so that's definitely a good thing for us to be aware of. I want to go ahead and note that a Nidus network just finished up somewhere. Here it is, right here. Here's the end of the Nidus worm, which is not something you want to look directly into. However, that is going to be a legitimate way for us to consider getting back and forth across this map, since we haven't been able to break through this just yet. We might want to consider expanding somewhere. We might want to consider just going ahead and counterattacking with several Zerglings running through this base. Would be quite devastating at this point in the game. Here we have Banelings morphing in. We have Infestors coming on out. There's a GG from Dappa, which of course is very rude. You never want to preemptively GG. Bad things happen to you if you preemptively GG, but here's the engagement. The Banelings unburrow and splash all over those Stalkers. I actually don't know who's getting the better of who in this case. It looks like we are going to see a surround from HateCraft, though. Once the smoke clears, there are several Void Rays in the air, but there are Hydralisks on the ground. So we'll see what winds up happening with that. Most of these units getting cleaned up. And as is typical with PvZ, you see Protoss players swing either one way or the other very quickly. Looks like we are about to see that Nidus network come into play. There's actually a really cool animation that goes with laying this down. You never see players let it fully extend out of the ground usually. Here we see this proxy finally being killed off by HateCraft. There's a base here, but I don't think there's going to be for long, unless of course he decides to go ahead and head out in this Nidus network, in which case he might bypass it completely. Looks like we're going to have an expansion here. Looks like this is going to get cancelled over here. And now, the units are all loaded into the Nidus network. We're ready to head out. And there they are, being sent out of the Nidus network. And, oh, that's disgusting, but the units have arrived. The probes retreat, as they should. Guardian shields are popped. And there's a fungal on everything. And here we have another very tense moment in this game. This base is killed off for Dappa, and this now means that the game has shifted such that, in fact, HateCraft is up a base on Dappa, which is quite a swing, actually. Here we have this hatchery getting ready to be finished on up. This Overlord looks like he will be left for dead, which is unfortunate. However, that Phoenix is going to move faster than him no matter what. These units here, just confused as to why someone would send a Nidus network to the same area that he sent his proxy. This is clearly HateCraft copying Dappa at this moment, except his hiding was much more successful than the Protoss player's hiding. Here we have the creep spread going on. This Zerg army able to finally stretch its legs and get out of the main base. Ready to go ahead and head on out. We see production of additional drones, this third being saturated very quickly. HateCraft very happy, I'm sure, to have this base. Re-establishing this base for Dappa. Probes distance mining. It's always kind of scary to leave your base as Protoss when you know that there's a Zerg player with speedlings and who is counterattacking you, because at any moment those speedlings could just run to the other side of the map and kill you. However, I don't believe that this is going to happen at this particular time, since we do have our entire army over here. It looks like there is going to be another final engagement. I'm surprised that they weren't auto-attacking each other because they were so physically close together. Bungle here would be great. It looks like we do have one. Here we have the units moving on back, which is probably a good idea. I think at this point HateCraft is actually coming up to even or ahead. We see the worker supply and army supply both shifting into HateCraft's favor, so he is finally coming out of the funk that he was in from that proxy originally. Additional units heading out across the map, having to run all the way across the map because there's no longer a pylon there for them to simply warp to. And here we have it, the final epic ultimate conflict. Very nice force fields, actually, keeping this army at bay. Very nice prismatic alignment. HateCraft deciding to back up, which is a very difficult decision given how hard he worked to secure this base in the first place. This army backing up and deciding to expand here. So it looks like this game is not yet over. This base resaturating. This army deciding to reposition. We have another expansion over here. This Protoss player does in fact know how this game is played. He knows that if you want more money, you need more expansions. And that's certainly a thing that he's going to go ahead and try and build right now. We do have a scout from HateCraft. He's going to spot all this. Definitely could be doing a bit more scouting as HateCraft, because he currently doesn't know about this base. And I believe if we go to the HateCraft cam, and we click on the vision, we can see that most of the map has been relatively unscouted. Granted, he has been sort of busy with the whole being proxied for most of the game and being a fairly contained thing, but sending an Overlord out or two to hide in certain places would be quite beneficial to him, I believe. Here we have a very nice fungal, very nice force fields though, as this army is cut in half. But we do see a lot of damage going down on the Protoss army. Those force fields will not hold forever. Indeed, our Zerg player backs up until the force fields have worn themselves off. And I believe there's only one sentry there. In fact, no sentries now. Additional sentries were warped in, but did not have the energy. Dappa just simply leaves the game. He does not bother with the GG, as he was kind enough to mention it earlier. I guess that was just him GGing, since he knew he was going to lose. But in any case, HateCraft proves victorious versus his cheese. Thank you so much, HateCraft, for this submission. For those of you out there who have a game that they played that they enjoyed and want to see me cast it, go ahead and send it to NoobCrafted@gmail.com. I'll put it on up on my channel. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.